So you guys are in a polyamory relationship.
When I told my mom, she didn't take it well. After that day, she kind of cut off ties with me. It kind of shook them, you know? We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Well, maybe they think this, maybe they think that.
We found it really important to not have the third person enter that argument as like taking sides.
You're afraid to move because you don't know what the next step is going to look like. A lot of us had to put our egos to the side, be as vulnerable as we can and say like, I'm terrified of blank. Like, we don't know what is going to happen. We don't know how a lot of this is going to work. What happens if one of you wants to break up?
And if you're thinking like that, it's not the right person.
I may never be in this type of relationship again.
You really have to figure out what is important to you in life.
Awesome to meet you guys.
Yeah, nice meeting you.
So, all right, let's just cut straight to it. So you guys are in a polyamory relationship. Introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Megan.
I'm Alana.
I'm Kevin.
Kevin, okay. How long have you guys been together?
We've been together a little over 4 years now.
4 years. Mm-hmm. That's crazy. You guys seem, from just being with you guys, super happy.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I've seen so many relationships of just two people, and they're not that happy. Explain to me how this all came together. Like, how did you guys meet? What was the day like? Yeah.
So Kev and I initially met and started dating back in 2017. We met through my sister and brother-in-law, that friend group. And throughout our relationship, kind of throughout my life, I wasn't sure if I was bisexual. Like, I had only dated men, but always had this curiosity in the back of my head. And we had a very, like, open relationship in the sense of open communication. We just talked about everything, and he made me feel really safe and comfortable in talking about these feelings that I had had. And so I was able to share that with him and let him know, like, I am kind of bi-curious. I want to explore that, and I didn't want to do it alone. I was in this happy relationship, and I wanted to do that together. So in 2020, we downloaded an app called 3Fun, and that's where we met Megs. Yeah.
Wow.
Here we are.
So you guys were together. Megan came in. How did this go down as far as you guys talking about it, and what was it like when you guys first met?
Yeah, so, I mean, when we talked about it, we didn't know any friends or family that were in this type of relationship. We were scared, we were nervous, we were excited, we were exhilarated. Yeah, all the things, all the emotions. So when we started talking with Megan, we were like, okay, she's a great conversationalist. It felt really natural just having a conversation. We were in a group chat all together for a while. And then when we finally met her, we were like, wow, she's beautiful, she's funny, she's fun, and go on. And it was awesome. It was an instant connection. Felt very comfortable, and yeah, I don't know, just an instant connection.
Yeah, I will say going into it, we all kind of, it was more to be kind of like a fling, I think we'd agree.
Yeah.
Like, that's what our expectations were of it. We didn't really expect to all like connect so well. So that was a happy surprise.
Yeah, we didn't go into it looking for a relationship per se. It was more
Like
experimenting. Experimenting, exploring my sexuality. But like you said, we fell into it, and it just, everything clicked so well.
Yeah.
And we were like, can we do this? And yeah, we can.
That's awesome. So what were some things that made you guys feel it clicked so well? Like, was it the energy between everybody here? Was it just like how communication happened?
I think both. I think energetically, like, we all were kind of on a like similar frequency and level. Communicating was great. Like, our sense of humor all meshes very well.
Yeah, that's definitely a huge one, is we all just made each other laugh like right away.
Yeah, that's cool. So what happened, like, in this first date or meetup? Did you guys left together, I'm guessing? Mm-hmm. And what was discussed on that side that then brought it closer together?
What was that car ride like?
It was fun. It was more of me asking Alana, like, okay, you've been bi-curious, you just had this experience, how are you feeling? What are you experiencing? Like, I was very curious, wanting to understand what was going through her mind. For me, it was also terrifying having, two women. So it was, it was scary. But she really like lit up, and seeing that evolution and that growth with her just made me fall deeper in love with her. It was great.
Yeah. I think for me, we just had that conversation in the car, and I could then say to him, yes, I am bi.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But it was also that was great, and we wanted to continue rather than it just being a one-time thing of well, let's just see how this goes. Let's continue and not set any parameters of okay, that was it, or okay, we're now going into a relationship. It was really just taking it one day at a time.
It was very organic, so it felt exciting, and we wanted to keep talking with Megan, because we were talking with Megan for about a month before we actually met her, and we wanted to just continue that conversation, meet up again, and it just turned from one thing to another.
So what was the first official date, and then when a moment came of I think we're all together, who asked who out, or was it just how did that come through?
I'd say a year after is when we all were together, that we weren't going to see anyone else for sure.
We also had unique circumstances that we started our first meetup. It wasn't, I guess date, but we didn't go out because it was the week
COVID.
of the lockdown that happened. So things were already shutting down. So we were okay, let's just meet up at your house.
Yeah.
And then we quarantined together essentially.
Yeah.
Until things started opening up. So it was almost we skipped the dating period for a little bit. And then once things opened up, it was almost a restart of the relationship. Okay, now we can go out on dates. What does this look like? And that was a whole nother aspect of figuring it out.
It was a warm-up phase, kind of being at home and getting used to it.
It was it was backwards. Do you know what I mean? We got more comfortable in that homey life, and then once COVID died down, then we're okay, let's go to a restaurant together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did we like each other outside of the house?
That was a bigger step forward of going into a public setting than it was being in the same setting. And if so, what was so difficult about the public setting? How did each of you feel in that?
I think we all probably had different experiences with that.
Right.
For me, because I was figuring out my sexuality and jumping into this type of relationship, going out into a public setting, at first, my mind was just okay, what are people going to think, and what do we do, and how do we act? And, you have all these thoughts come up in your head, but then you kind of have to not overthink it so much.
Yeah, and on my side, it was okay, am I giving this person enough attention? Am I giving this person enough attention? I was also being aware of the surroundings. There were a lot of looks, which was new, because if you're normally in just a hetero relationship, nobody looks twice. They, it's just, okay, that's a couple. But in this kind of relationship, you see heads turn, you see people whispering, pointing, talking. So it was kind of very, very different than a normal date.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I could tell when we were at the coffee shop, you were sitting down, you guys were together, you guys kissed. It wasn't that I was not expecting that, but I respected the fact that you guys showed love. You guys showed love. And then you guys, you know what I'm saying? It syncs well to where it's not like you own the relationship and it's you're commanding this way, that way, What was it it became official, you guys go into a public setting, telling mom and dad, telling family. How did that all kind of go down?
Yeah, so we all like to be our authentic and transparent selves. And before we came out to anybody, we wanted to make sure what we had was a solid foundation and that we were ready to talk to people. So when we had the discussion of, okay, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? Do you feel like it's a good time to tell our friends and family? We were all on the same page. Mm-hmm. And it was scary because this was something that you never planned for, of okay, well, I'm going to have this conversation with my mom and dad, you know.
I mean, I remember that day when you were getting ready to go do it. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah,
I'm so
you were
nervous
like
for her.
nervous for me.
Well, yeah, because they both went on the same day to do it.
Yeah.
Like they left the apartment and I was like sitting there waiting to hear from both of them. That was.
Because your family knew.
Yeah.
Your mom.
I told my
was a
mom
hippie,
right away. She didn't care. She was cool.
So for us, they were both really patient and understanding and loving. And I took longer to get to a point of being comfortable of sharing and like telling my family, because I wasn't sure how that response was going to be coming from a Catholic family. My mom's side is Catholic, my dad's atheist. So I was like, I don't know where this is going to hit. Like, I have no idea. So it took me a little longer to get to a point where I'm like, yes, I can go talk to them and tell them and be fully transparent and be myself. And it was, they were not expecting that conversation at all. Because I was like, hey, what are you guys doing today? Can I stop by? And my mom was like, okay, what's going on? And I told her, and literally their jaws hit the floor.
And their mouths like actually open.
Oh yeah, they were like, and my mom was just like, I knew you were going to share something, but I never would have thought it was
I feel
that.
like pregnancy would have been less surprising.
I know, maybe they even thought it was going to be that, but they kind of just kept going. Like my dad was like, okay, well, have you guys all gone camping together? Like, not quite sure how to continue, but they
Can you
just
pass the butter?
continued on.
Yeah.
They were like, okay, like that's your life.
So have you guys all met each other's families?
I think I met your dad once briefly, and I met your dad once briefly.
Yeah, so with mine, I grew up in a very religious family and Christian. So when I told my family, my dad was okay. He wasn't thrilled, but he's, you know, you're my son, I love you. You're not hurting anybody, you're not hurting yourself. When I told my mom, she didn't take it well. So after that day, she kind of cut off ties with me for about 2.5 years. And we just recently started having conversations again, but it's very shallow. It's more of like, how's the weather? You know, nothing about our personal life or about either of the girls, which was something that I had anticipated. I recognize that, you know, these are my family's beliefs, and I understand that mine don't align with theirs. So this was something that was a potential to happen, a potential outcome. But ultimately, I wanted to live my authentic life. And since being in this relationship, I've experienced so much love. And I think my mom will eventually come around to it. But, you know, she's where she's at, and I'm ready to talk to her whenever she's willing.
Yeah. What do you think, when that time came, did it kind of tell you the truth of who really values you because of you versus not? And why do you think, like, did you guys lose friends? Or did you always have people say, like, you know what, we don't care what you do, or just as long as you're a good person? Like, how did that go down with that? And why do you think that happens? Is it because people are so into what they believe, or...
Yeah.
I think for like my parents, they had this idea of who I am, and when they recognized that their idea of who they thought I was not the reality, it kind of shook them, you know. And to me, it was more important that they knew the real me and not some form or version of me that they had in their heads. So while it was difficult to go through that change in the relationship with my mom, I think it was better that they understood who the real me was, you know. And in terms of our friends, all of our friends were very accepting. As soon as we told them they wanted to meet Megan, and when we brought them together, it was just, it was great. Like,
Just felt like normal.
Yeah. Like my little brother was like, you know, it's so wild because you guys just feel like a regular relationship, just one more person to add input, to talk to. You know, when we're barbecuing or something, it's like, oh, how's your day? How's your day? How's your day? And but everything else felt pretty similar, you know?
Yeah, we are really fortunate in that, like, no friends of ours were like oh, we can't be friends anymore, or looked differently at us, or didn't get along with Megan, like friend wise, like we had a great success rate.
Yeah, a great support system. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did it become, because my theory, right, like before I'd met you guys, I was like thinking in my mind, I was like, man, I feel like more people, more problems, more thoughts, more emotions, more disruption, more,
Yes
more
to all those.
more everything. Okay, yeah. Well, so then if that does or does not happen, how long did it take for you guys to get used to things like that? Because you're never going to feel always happy, and neither are you. So how did you guys deal with getting used to all those different feelings?
I mean, I would just say that the communication in this relationship is like off the charts.
Next level.
Yeah, and we just have to kind of like always put everything on the table.
So give me an example of what makes it off the charts, like what makes it so good.
I think especially in the beginning, like putting our fears out in front of everyone right away. Like feelings that maybe would be embarrassing. So like feeling jealous, feeling left out, feeling less than, feeling this, that, or the other thing. You know, a lot of times I think in relationships, you hold those within.
Yeah, suppress them too.
Suppress it and just work through it yourself. But we did it with each other. Like everything we felt, even if it sucked to say it, we said it to each other. And we realized doing that, like if your partners really care, like they're going to help you work through it, which we did, I think, with each other.
And we also all believe that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. So sometimes you get these narratives in your head of like, well, maybe they think this, maybe they think that. And that's kind of the vulnerability and courage we think this relationship requires, is to put that in the open and say, this might be my ego talking, this might be my fear, but I'm feeling this, and I just wanted you guys to know this is what's going on internally.
Yeah.
And we would have those conversations. We would cry in front of each other. We would let each other know, I'm scared. I don't know how this is going to work. This is new terrain for me. And let's navigate this together. And instead of, everyone working at their own pace, we kind of done a really good job, I think, of moving through things together. Maybe her fears are different than mine, but it was important that we practice active listening and let that person speak their truth. If this is what they're feeling, I want to hear that. I want to know, and I want to see what I can do to help, or what I can do to just be there for them. Maybe it's not a solution that I need to give them. Maybe it's just listening, and we've done a lot of that in this relationship.
And patience.
Yeah.
Like especially doing a relationship like this that none of us had ever experienced before. There were certain things where we were like, I'm not ready to enter that right now. And even if two of us maybe were ready to be there, waiting for the other person to get there.
Yeah. You guys seem to be, you seem to be growing together, operating together, experiencing things together, which is what probably makes it gel so well together. But what do you do in a moment, or, have you guys had certain fights between, Megan and Kevin, and that you're not included in this? So how does this kind of go down to get that solved? And how do you feel not being part of it, as like an example,
Yeah, that's a great question. You can answer that one.
Yeah. It is like there are a lot of times that maybe two people get into something. And for us, we found it really important to not have the third person enter that argument as like taking sides, because then one person could feel ganged up on. Like even if you do agree with one of the two people, if you are going to help out in that argument and try to resolve it, it's really important to be more of like a mediator and try to help be like, okay, well, I see this perspective. Because sometimes when you're in a fight, like you see red. You're just like, I can't see it from your side. Like, so it is almost helpful having a third person to be like, hey, well, I don't think they meant it this way. And like you can help that other person see that.
Yeah, like you get a different perspective right away because they actually witnessed what happened.
Yeah.
Which is kind of different than, a one-on-one relationship where it's like, you said this, no, you said this, whereas we have another person to kind of hold us accountable.
And it's also like an interesting balance, because sometimes it's like, okay, well, you two are going through this. I have no part of it. I want you to work through it. but also like all three of us are in a relationship. So sometimes where you want to just be like, okay, I'm going to leave you two alone. It's like, well, I kind of have to be there to know like what's going on.
Yeah.
There is definitely some discomfort when that happens.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, you feel embarrassed that another person, especially another partner, is seeing you in this light, or maybe your ego comes up. But I think we all are on the same page. It's not about being like winning or losing an argument, or about being right or wrong. It's about growing together, seeing things, and trying to understand and connect with your partner on different levels. And sometimes our communication styles are differently. So I might not understand what Megan's trying to say. I'll ask Alana, hey, I don't understand what she's trying to tell me. And Alana can come at it at a different angle that maybe resonates better with me, that I could be like, oh, okay. Then I can have a conversation with Megan. Is this what you were meaning? Did I miss this completely? Like, that went way over my head. And we can have those conversations in that kind of manner rather than just going at it and butting heads.
Or it's like, yeah, how could I have said this better?
Yeah, what can I do to improve to
Yeah.
better communicate with you?
Well, and I think we all have different perspectives in this. Like for me, I've only been in relationships with men where Megan hasn't. So sometimes he'll do stuff and she's like, what?
And
I'm
I'm
like,
like,
oh,
logical
that's like a
brain, I
man
don't
thing.
understand.
Yeah, that
Versus,
makes
like,
sense.
Him, or like if she were to do something, or like I do something, we're both female, so we could be like, well, that's just like
That's
how we're
humans.
like
Yeah.
communicating or operating. So it's really cool that we can give insight into like each other and like how each of us operates.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my next question is like, what are the strengths that each of you bring to the relationship?
That's a great question.
It's a great question.
I would say the patience from Alana in just about every aspect of this relationship. She's a very nurturing partner and patient with both of us. I think Megan is very courageous and resilient. And when she puts her mind to something, nothing's going to stop her. The courage I've seen, actually both of them, but Megan especially, going through some of the things that she's gone through in the past, and it just makes me fall deeper in love with them. Like, I get to see there's so many positive qualities both of these two bring to the table that I feel like the luckiest guy in the world just to witness their growth. It takes a lot of courage out of their comfort zone, and they've handled it both with grace and just perseverance. Even when you're afraid to move because you don't know what the next step is going to look like, they both dove deep into the pool of love and just kind of said, okay, like let's figure this out together. And yeah.
I mean, respect to you guys, because like I was saying, is there's so many things that people want to do in their life, they don't ever do it because it's all stuck right here. That's why the motto of like one day, one life is like, you literally have one day and your entire life can change, and it's all about today and today only, no other day.
Yeah.
So at the coffee shop, we discussed like love languages, that you guys all are on the same page with the same love languages. But what are they? We didn't discuss that.
So
What's the pattern? Like top, middle, down.
yeah, top is quality time,
Yeah, second is physical touch,
Okay.
and then words of affirmation.
acts of service, and then gifts.
Yeah.
So all of ours are in
same
that
order,
order.
yeah.
Yeah.
So what is a quality time? Like, is that obviously you, all three of you guys together, and like, what does that kind of look like?
I think primarily the three of us together, because like I said, we all mesh really well. We love to spend time with each other. Like, I don't know, that's when, like if we were to choose, we choose time for the three of us.
Yeah.
But there are times where two people are alone or one person has to do something, so the other two people go on a date. So just that quality time. And for us, like a big part of that quality time is hiking or fishing, being in nature, camping when we get a chance to do that.
Kind of this
to
adventure and
snuggle, too.
explore. Yeah.
Even on days where if it is snowing and we're stuck at home, like snuggling, watching movies, just being like close to each other, because that plays into the physical
That's
touch
true.
as well,
That's
which
true.
is really,
That's nice.
it's a really close second.
Yeah.
What makes it a close second?
I was gonna say the percentages, but also I think we all, I mean, even sitting here, we're all like holding each other when we're on the couch, Like we'll be like, even if it's just a hand right here, because sometimes he'll sit on the ground, so it's like you'll be leaning and it's just like
Put a
even just
toe
a
on
hand.
it.
Yeah.
Or at nighttime, you know, it can get hot sleeping in the middle, but even still, it's like just like a
Yeah, like you
hand
put like
touch
your
or
foot
toe,
or
yeah.
something. It's like a weird, I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to explain.
Yeah.
It's a synergy
Yeah,
that
yeah.
only you guys know of, you know? So how does it, because like sleeping together is very difficult, at least from I've never slept with two other people at the same time, so I don't know. But like being in the middle seems like a nightmare for me. How does that work?
It took some getting used to.
Definitely.
To be real.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And we did when we started our relationship. We had a queen size bed.
That's respect, yeah.
Which didn't work out for all three of us sleeping in the
we
same
ended
bed.
up putting like a extra mattress.
A blow-up
in
mattress.
the living room,
So
and
we'd
we'd rotate. So we'd have two people in the queen, one in the living room, and then every night
We would
like,
just
go.
rotate.
Yeah.
Um,
Stepped it up to a king size bed.
And then once
so
we
now-
got the king size, I feel like we were just so grateful to have more space. We were like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
But the middle, it's kind of a double-edged sword because it's like you get snuggles from both people, so you get like the ultimate love.
Yeah.
But then it gets hot, or sometimes you get squished because both people are like up in your space.
Or they pull the covers, and then you have like nothing on top of your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you like need to wake up in the middle of the night and use the restroom, you're like, I'm gonna wake up two people right now. So like,
Yeah, that's,
sorry guys.
yeah, that takes getting used to, I'm sure.
For sure.
I mean, even just two people takes a long time.
Yeah.
So like when you guys, because it sounds like you guys all grew up in different types of families, and I highly doubt, correct me if I'm wrong, that your parents were teaching you about polyamory relationships as a kid.
Never.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Now the question I'm going to ask you is not necessarily saying, okay, well everyone watching this, like you guys should go get in a polyamory relationship. But what the context is like you guys took a big step, each one of you, to go out and test something out, but now it's helped you guys create a quality, happy life, which is what I think personally everybody wants, regardless like what their beliefs are.
Yeah.
Right? So the fact that you guys did achieve that, but you were in this gap here that was so difficult mentally, probably emotionally and physically, what did you guys do that pushed you beyond that barrier to get to this point that you're at? If that makes sense. Like, what did you each do? Was it just like a day where you're like, this is it, I'm gonna do it? Or was it like a build up? And how did you kind of overcome that? Was it having the right crowd of support? Was it taking a risk? Like, what did that look like?
I think, like you said, it could be different for all of us. I mean, for me, it was like over a span of time. And it was
Yeah.
like having to really like dig deep and just like face fears head on and like really go with your insecurities and be like, I'm just gonna do this. Like, yeah.
I think, same for me. It did definitely take time. It wasn't just one day where I was like, all right, we're doing this. Like, it was a lot of personal work that I was doing and, you know, figuring out my sexuality and that changing at this time in my life. I was 23 when like I figured this out, and so kind of re-navigating what life was like, but then also how we introduced this relationship to those that were closest to us. We started with our close friends. Their responses are really positive and accepting and loving. I felt more comfortable with the idea of sharing with family or being public, being on social media with it. So it was definitely like there were stepping stones to it for me.
And I think on my end, we've all had this conversation is earlier in our lives, we probably weren't mentally, emotionally mature enough to kind of have this relationship. So there was a lot of personal development that went on with each of us before, during, and now. So a lot of us had to put our egos to the side, be as vulnerable as we can and say like, I'm terrified of blank, or I don't know how to handle this, and just be completely upfront and transparent with all of that. I think it was like over the course of time of getting to know each other, you know, building that confidence to come out and say, you know, let's do this. But ultimately, I think the main tipping point of the decision for me is I know how I feel with Alana. I know how I feel with Megan. I know how they feel with each other and with me. We know we have something special. We know we have something real and strong. What are we going to do with that? Are we going to just push that to the side and just say, well, maybe people aren't going to understand, maybe this, maybe, in a negative sense, right? All these what ifs happen. But there were other what ifs and other maybes that came to mind after, of like, maybe this is so special and a once in a lifetime opportunity that we get to cultivate this kind of love and be in this type of relationship. What are we going to do with that? What if this is going to be the best years of our lives? What if we're going to go on adventures we never fathomed? What if, and then, at least for me, my imagination like went that other way. And in giving the choice of living, or, you know, once you have that ultimatum, it's like, are you going to do things out of love or out of fear? And we kind of express that with each other. Like, we don't know what is going to happen. We don't know how a lot of this is going to work. We didn't read any books. We didn't know anybody. Yeah. But we do know what we have is real, strong, and just like magical almost. Yeah. So let's run with that. Let's keep running with it until something changes. And, you know, one of the common questions we get online is, well, what happens if one of you falls out of love? What happens if one of you wants to break up? And it's funny to think like that, because if you're thinking about what ifs in those negative way, you can attract that. But we're like, you don't want to go into something with what if and all these negatives. Yeah. Right? The attraction could pull you towards that. And we just don't focus on that.
That's like a monogamous relationship. You don't go into a relationship, you know, you're all excited thinking about what could go wrong. Like, you think about what could go right. So we're just trying to do the same thing.
And if you're thinking like that, it's not the right person.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
So what do you guys think, like, because if I'm asking this question to somebody who is not in a polyamory relationship or doesn't believe in it, I don't think we'd be able to figure out the right answer. I say that because, like, you know, I probably won't be ever getting into a polyamory relationship, but I want to ask you guys, like, is the desire to get into a relationship like this, or having the openness that you guys have, do you guys think that's a genetic thing? Is it just like let's experiment? Or like, what? Because there's a huge debate on that. Oh, it's genetic. Oh, it's environment. Oh, it's trauma. Like,
yeah, that's
a great question.
Yeah.
I think it's different courses for different horses, ultimately. Yeah. I don't think there is a right or wrong path. Yeah. I think this type of relationship is definitely not for everybody. You have to understand, in relationships, you're dealing with other humans as well as yourself. So, like, if you're feeling like, I'm a very jealous person, and you're not unpacking, where's this jealousy coming from? Why do I feel like this? Is this something I think I can overcome? If I don't handle this, how is that going to negatively impact the other parties involved, the other humans involved? If you don't if you're not as introspective with your insecurities and feel like you can be vulnerable to have these difficult conversations, I don't think it's the right type of relationship for you, right? And that's okay. There is no one is better than the other. There is no this one's right, this one's wrong.
Yeah, I don't think that this kind of relationship means you're more evolved or it's better than a monogamous relationship. I think it's just like personal to you.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we've talked about it, that if this relationship doesn't work out for some reason, you know, life happens. I may never be in this type of relationship again. But this, with these two humans, this works for me. I don't know if with two other humans it would. So I think it's very like personal to you and then who you're dealing with. That's at least how I see it.
Yeah, agreed.
So what are y'all's goals? Family? No family? Just stay the way it is? Like, what is kind of the goal in the relationship?
Right now, our goal is to kind of continue on this path that we're on. Like, we're really happy with what we've got going on. We want to develop our careers more, and eventually, long-term goals, we've always thought it would be kind of fun to create kind of our own camp. I mean, we are a camp throuple.
Wow, that's
Having
super cool.
some sort of camp where we can do retreats and stuff.
Yeah, and have different workshops and, speakers. So people who are curious about this relationship, they can learn different ways to communicate, different ways, coming out to friends and family. How do you do that, right? And maybe we can supply others with a blueprint based off of our experiences.
Or just, be around people that will accept you for your relationship. And I don't think we'd ever considered doing something like this before we started on social media. But with the amount of people that reach out who are looking for advice or help or
just community. Yeah.
now it's like, oh, maybe we could actually help people.
Yeah, there are a lot of situations that are very unique to this kind of relationship that others can try and put themselves in the shoes, but they don't know how it feels, right? They well, I'm about to enter in a relationship with a couple, or as a couple, we're going to open our relationship to somebody else. There's a lot of scary thoughts that come up, and feelings, emotions, sometimes debilitating and overwhelming.
So doing something like that would be really cool.
Yeah, and what we've seen is there are so many people online that have reached out to us with questions because they're willing to try this, they just don't know where to start, or they don't know how can I do this, or and I think being online and communicating with these people, if we could create an environment or an ecosystem where we can have these difficult conversations and let go of some of these fears, that's something I think that we're all interested in.
2 last questions. Official marriage. You guys can't officially get married.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's obviously a legal thing. Because from what I'm understanding is that the government's we don't want that to happen because you guys would have extreme benefits in many different ways financially, I'm guessing.
I'm not sure. We actually never have looked into that.
Yeah.
We have talked before that we don't want marriage or kids together.
Okay.
So we had that conversation pretty early on. Yeah.
Well, last question, what do you guys, for people who, my belief, I don't have life fully figured out. My belief of life is everybody has something that makes them happy, and it could be completely different things. Everyone's got different beliefs because it makes them feel a different way. And if you believing X, Y, and Z makes you feel fulfilled and happy, believe it. But don't feel like everybody else is going to change to be like you. That's kind of my theory, right? So what is your advice for people who are feeling like they're not themselves, and they know there's something that would fulfill them, but they haven't taken that step? They're either worried, they're scared, they're fear, all these sort of things. What is a message to them that could have them pursue their goals or try something else out that would make them feel fulfilled? What is a message to kind of push that forward?
I think for me, coming from me, for someone who is struggling with that, you really have to figure out what is important to you in life. Is it important for you to live a life that's authentic to you and that makes you feel your best? Or is it important to live a life that's making others around you feel comfortable? And we got pretty lucky with the response from those that were close to us. So I can't speak for everyone. I can't say go tell your family, because they might not talk to you, and I don't want to be the one to encourage that. But I also want people to recognize that we're each living our own lives on this planet, and we don't know what comes after this. No one has that answer, as much as some people want to say they do. We don't have that answer, and so you have to live this life on earth to its fullest, and whatever that means to you, I think you just have to go with it.